We shall start the meeting now. Okay, I'm going to go deaf from that. So welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you're all here. I was hoping more would be able to be coming, but hey, life is what it is, right? And we actually have some sunshine right now, so no complaints. So anyway, it's the May meeting and we are off and running for tonight. Yes, I said welcome, so it's good because I don't remember what I'm doing. So I'm going to hand it over to Sue to give the birthdays and anniversaries for this month.
Well, thank you, President Marion and fellow Rotarians. We do not have any May birthdays. There may be anniversaries that I'm not aware of. So I looked up online a couple of people just so that we can congratulate somebody. Queen Victoria was born on May 24th, 1819. And the next year, on May the 12th, 1820, Florence Nightingale was born. So maybe a year from now, we'll have a new member whose birthday is in May, but we'll have to have them as honorary members. Back to you, Marion.
Okay, well, that's a quiet month then. Anyway, so, hi, Rich. So we're going to go straight into our speaker for tonight, and Kitty has a video presentation, I think, for us.
I do. I've got a bunch of them.
Okay.
So assuming this works, we'll just... There we are. Okay.
This spider monkey is an unwitting climate activist. Large fruit eaters such as this one spread the seeds of tropical hardwood trees in their dung, helping to build up forests which absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And this is just one of perhaps millions of interactions that guarantee a healthy and functioning planet. Humans have spent hundreds of years documenting life on Earth, and we now have a catalogue of around 1.6 million species. However, there may be 7 or 8 million more that we don't yet know about. We have a good idea of the large animals, such as mammals and birds, but there are doubtless even some of these that we've missed. And the smaller you go, the more species there are left to find. As the human impact on the planet intensifies, scientists fear that many species could be lost before we even discover them. So why is it so important that we protect our planet's biodiversity? When we think of protecting wildlife, we tend to picture the superstars. But the organisms that do most of the hard work keeping our planet healthy are the unglamorous ones. This biodiversity provides us with the food we eat, from the microorganisms that enrich the soil where we grow our crops, to the pollinators who give us fruit and nuts, and the fish that are the main source of animal protein for around 1 billion people. Many of our medicines originate from plants and fungi, and many more may lie undiscovered in remote corners of the world. For instance, there's a fungus that grows on the fur of sloths that could help treat some forms of cancer. The natural world shelters and protects us too. Trees and shrubs protect our homes from flooding, and coral reefs and mangroves shield our coastlines from storm surges. And all that is not to mention the great spiritual and cultural value that nature holds for human beings the world over. But despite the overwhelming benefits of a healthy planet, many human actions are destroying biodiversity. Changes to habitats for grazing, mining and crop production, including the use of harmful fertilizers, have had a huge impact on land and sea. We hunt animals for meat and prize body parts. More than 300 mammal species risk being consumed to extinction. And then there's climate change. This affects the whole world, putting huge pressure on wildlife. In 2016 and 2017, half the corals in the Great Barrier Reef died as a result of the warming of the seas. So, what must we do now to slow down the crisis we are faced with? In addition to cutting our carbon emissions, we must find ways of using land and water that cause the least damage to the environment, leaving enough space for natural habitats to thrive. We must urgently protect the so-called biodiversity hotspots, but equally we should be rebuilding biodiversity wherever and however we can. Sometimes this is as simple as giving plants and animals the space they need to succeed, and sometimes they need hands-on management from humans. In 2020, with the help of reintroduction experts in the south of England, white-stalked chicks hatched for the first time in 600 years. Hands-on management was also critical to restoring the population of mountain gorillas in the Virunga National Park in Central Africa. This included using a proportion of the money raised through tourism to help human communities coexist with their animal neighbours. We must provide pathways for global development that work with rather than against nature, and we need to give the communities affected a seat at the table. The benefits provided by nature are indispensable for making human life both possible and worth living. We need all the riches of our living planet to help us live healthy, happy lives long into the future. Find out more about biodiversity and its importance by visiting our online Q&A. Go to royalsociety.org/biodiversity.
Now, wasn't that a lovely little film? That's number one of the things that I can show you tonight. So you can discuss that while I'm looking for the next one if you want.
Okay, anybody have anything that they want to talk about that?
I just thought it was really good.
Does anybody here have a bat house?
No.
I don't,
of. We used to at our other house,
because
Yeah. the end of our shop. Yeah.
because that's something I don't see very often around here anymore, though I know that Charles has that at his and Jessica's place that they see bats, but I remember
our
back in the
trees
day
are
we used to have
big
them getting in
trees.
the house.
And actually, the last, 2 or 3 years, George, we didn't see very many bats.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
scary, because
It
they
is
do a
scary.
great job of eating all those bugs.
Yeah. Oh, mosquitoes especially. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Didn't they get a disease or something, a virus or?
Yeah, there's some sort of a sinus thing that they've been suffering from for a lot of them.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, scary.
Too bad.
Okay, if there's nothing else on the environment, which is still a very important topic, I have a video that I actually found after I mentioned it to Nancy this weekend, and I think it's a very interesting video. It's a story, and the videos that I've got are stories, and I think stories are good because they allow you to meet other people and understand other people. So I am going to go ahead with this. This is about an 11-minute video, and it's a story. So, okay.
The year was 1992, Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm curled up in a fetal position on a filthy carpet in a very cluttered apartment, and I'm in horrible withdrawal from a drug that I've been addicted to for several years now. In my hand, I have a little dilapidated piece of paper. I've been folding it and unfolding it. There's a phone number on it. And if you've ever had an anxiety attack, that's what this felt like. I'd been having like a nonstop anxiety attack for the last 5 years. And I'd never been in a more dark or desperate place as that night. And I would have just gone screaming out of there. My husband was out running the streets trying to get a hold of some of that stuff that we needed. And I knew if he succeeded, he was not going to share. And if I could, I would have jumped out of my own skin and run into the streets. But right behind me in the room, sleeping, was my baby boy. Now, I wasn't going to get a Mother of the Year award in 1992. In fact, at the age of 29, I was failing at a lot of things. It had started out fairly auspiciously. I was raised in comfort and privilege. I was that girl who had the opera lessons, who spoke fluent French, who had her expensive undergraduate college paid for. I was that person who, when my checking account ran out, I would say something to my parents and $200 would magically appear. I know, when the revolution comes, kill me first, right? So I had the year abroad. I had a master's degree. I was, pedigreed. But as you get to your 20s, someone like me, I ended up in Ann Arbor, and I started noticing things like poverty and injustice and racism, and it was a huge revelation to me. And I came to the faulty conclusion that the thing I needed to do with my privilege and all the comfort that I'd had all my life was to destroy it, rip it in half, spit on it, piss on it, and set it on fire. You know, every time I've made a major faulty conclusion, the man comes right after that will help me live it out. And this was no different. Man, he was beautiful, 40 years old, and a radical, revolutionary, fine-ass poet from Detroit. I'm 24, he's 40, and I was smitten in love. It was so exciting, who he was, how he talked, the way he looked at the world. And it was beautiful for a while until he introduced me to one of his old activist friends who introduced us to the drug I was now addicted to. And so I had tried to transform myself. I wanted to shed my class. If I could have, I would have shed my race. Instead of transformation, you have me in Ann Arbor in 1992 going 90 miles an hour down I-94 with my poet, with a car full of alcohol, illegal drugs, paraphernalia. The baby's in a car seat covered, it's probably not a regulation car seat, he's covered in candy and chocolate because you have to keep the baby entertained while you're taking care of your business, getting yourself some relief. This particular night, it was bad because if we were to have been pulled over one of those many times that we were going down that highway, I was on parole, he was on probation. We would have both been locked up and our child would have been taken from us. So underneath my withdrawal and terrible anxiety was a sure knowledge that I was leading the life that was going to lead to me losing the most precious thing I'd ever had in my life. I was so desperate at that moment that I became willing to punch the numbers into the phone. And the phone number was something my mother had sent me. Now, mind you, I hadn't been speaking to my parents or anybody else for 3, 4, 5 years. But she'd managed to get this number to me in the mail, and she said, look, this is a Christian counselor, and since you can't talk to anybody else, maybe sometime you could call this person. I'm not trying to hang with any particular religion at this point, but I'm so desperate, and I'm so anxious, and I'm in such a desperate state. I was emaciated, covered in bruises. I punched in the numbers. I hear the phone pick up. I hear a man say hello, and I say, hi, I got this number from my mother. Do you think you could maybe talk to me? And I heard him shuffling around in the bed, like, you know, you could tell he was pulling some sheets around and sitting up. And I heard a little radio in the background, and he snapped it off, and he just became very present. And he said, yes, 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 what's going on? And I hadn't told anybody, including myself, the truth for a long, long time. And I told him I wasn't feeling so good, and that I was scared, and that things had gotten pretty bad in my marriage. And, you know, before long, I started telling him other truths, like I might have a drug problem, and I really, really love my husband, and I wouldn't want you to say anything bad about him, but he has hit me a few times, and there was a time when he pushed my child and me out into the cold and slammed the door behind us, and then there was a time when we were going 60 miles an hour down the highway, and he tried to push us out of the moving vehicle, but I love him, and don't say anything bad about him. I started telling those truths, and this man didn't judge me. He just sat with me and was present and listened and had such a kindness and such a gentleness. Tell me more. Oh, that must hurt. Oh. And you know, I'd made that call probably 2 in the morning, and he stayed with me the whole night until the sun rose. And I was feeling calm. I was feeling okay. I was feeling, you know, I can splash my face with water today, and I can probably do this day. I wouldn't have cared if the guy was like a Hare Krishna or a Buddha. It didn't matter to me what his faith was. I was very grateful to him. And so I said, hey, you know, I really, really appreciate you and what you've done for me tonight. Aren't you supposed to be telling me to read some Bible verses or something? Because that, you know, that'd be cool. I'll do it. You know, it's all right. And he laughed, and he said, well, I'm glad this was helpful to you. And we talked some more, and I brought it around again. I said, no, really, you're very, very good at this. I need to tell you how grateful I am. How long have you been a Christian counselor? And he said, okay, Auburn, I've been trying to like avoid this subject. I need you right now not to hang up. That number you called, wrong number. I didn't hang up on him. I never learned his name, never talked to him again. I don't think I took any of his advice. But I need to tell you that the next day, I experienced something that I've heard called peace that passes understanding, because I had experienced that there was random love in the universe, and that some of it was unconditional, and that some of it was for me. And I can't tell you that I got my life totally together that day, but it became possible. And it also became possible for me to take that sticky chocolate-covered baby boy and raise him up into a young honor scholar athlete who graduated from Princeton University in 2013 with honors. This is what I know. In the deepest, blackest night of despair and anxiety, it only takes a pinhole of light, and all of grace can come in. Thank you.
Any comments on that? I know Nancy and I know Nancy and I discussed this on, it's an unbelievable story. I know, very emotional, very emotional. For me, no, I'll just explain. That's the moth. And if you don't know about the moth is kind of like TED Talks, but they're not prepared. It's a gathering live, as you can see. There is a microphone and speakers come to the microphone to share a story that is very important to them. And they just tell the story. Now they can meet at other times and learn how to tell a story properly. This woman was phenomenal in her storytelling, but they are just stories that have an impact on the storyteller. And they're all sorts of topics, all sorts of, sometimes this one was 11 minutes, sometimes they're 5 and 6 minutes, sometimes they're 15 minutes, depending on the particular sort of gathering that they have. But these are phenomenal. And that one I had to share because I think we live privileged lives. We can hear, oh, he's a drug addict, he's this, he's that, or she is, whatever. But you have to understand the whole story. So please make some comments. I'm going to look for my next video. I'd love to hear comments on what you've got there, what your ideas are.
I just want to say it was very powerful.
I was just going to agree, Bev, that the power of storytelling, of sharing right from the heart, of being open and willing to share, because sometimes it's not always a safe place to do so. And to have that trust to be able to do that. And, I'm going to say this came up at the conference. If I relate it back to mental health and how, it's impacting our world. And, kind of, we're still not at a place, to me speaking, in our society of recognizing, we certainly acknowledge physical ailments, but not so much the mental. And to hear that woman's story, like, oh my gosh, very, very moving. It certainly is.
And if somebody phoned you at 2 a.m, out of the blue.
Yeah.
That's the remarkable thing about it.
I agree. The kindness of that person. Yeah.
So I'll let you.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Kitty, by the way. Thank you.
You're very welcome. That I found that years ago, and it resonates with me. There are a couple that do, but that one is so really powerful, really, really powerful.
And I think the challenge with mental illness is you can't see it, and physical illness is visible sometimes, but when you have a mental illness or you've suffered a lot of trauma, often that turns into a mental illness that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And it's the challenge, because people wonder, why are they like that, or why do they look like that, or why don't they want to take part, or there's so many different things.
Mhm.
And the amount of times I get asked, why do you have a dog?
Yeah.
Because it's not visible. They would rather you were blind or deaf or in a wheelchair so they could understand why you had it.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't help about being blind, though. My mom had macular degeneration, and she had only less than 10% vision, but she'd still be out and about, and we went to Rotary and everything. And I still remember I had a doctor's appointment, so she wanted to come with me, and she wanted me to drop her off at Walmart so she could go looking at the clothing and stuff. And when I finished the doctor's appointment and I came back to get her, she was really upset because of her vision, she couldn't read the tags on the clothing for the price. And she found this outfit that she thought was really neat. And she went to one of the clerks that works there, and she held out the tag and she said, "Can you tell me how much this is?" And the lady looked at her and said, "It's right there."
Oh, goodness.
And my mom's like, "I can't read it. I don't see well enough." But, it's like, why would you ask if you could see it?
Sure.
And my mom was wearing glasses that had these yellow lenses to help improve the vision. So obviously, there's something odd about her eyes. And when you look at that, or you look at someone who has a mental health condition or trauma or an addiction or whatever, you don't see it. And that was when I really got hit by the idea that, if you don't see it, you don't credit it as being real.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the saddest thing. And when you see people who do accept that there's something, like she was talking about, that gentleman that listened to her even though he wasn't who she was trying to reach, it's like, thank God there was somebody who would do that.
I think kindness and understanding are what we all need more of. And I've got another 2 moth stories. So you'll give you an idea of what the moth is and real people. So if that works out,
most exciting day for any theater kid. And that's the day when the cast list for the High School Musical comes out. I get out of my first hour class, I rush on over to the music room, I take a look at that cast list, and I see that the worst possible scenario has happened. I see my name right at the top of that list. I've been cast as the gregarious confidence trickster Harold Hill, the lead in The Music Man. But that's not the bad part. Right underneath my name, next to Marion Peru, the love interest, is the name of my ex-girlfriend. My mother actually knew about this casting decision before I did. She was one of the directors on the show. But she had removed herself from the casting process when it came to my ex and me. And at that point, I kind of wished that she hadn't, because my ex and I were on bad terms. She did not want to interact with me, and she made sure that I knew that. And I was having a really hard time coping with that reality. She was a senior, I was a junior. We had been friends since middle school, and I didn't want to get back together with her at this point. In fact, I was with somebody else at the time, but I just couldn't fathom the possibility that she would go off to college and we would be on bad terms and never talk again. And it didn't help that now I knew for the next 3 months I would be seeing her every single day, and every rehearsal I would try and seduce her as part of a long con, and each performance would culminate with a shared on-stage kiss. And so realizing this, standing in front of the cast list, I realized I needed to text her, and I did. I said something like, oof. I said, like, we need to work past some things, I guess. And she did not respond. But we started the rehearsal process, and the most amazing thing happened. We actually started getting along. We were hanging out, and by hanging out, I mean rehearsing. And we were talking to one another again, and by talking to one another, I mean running lines. And we even choreographed our own dance to the song Marion the Librarian, which turned out really well. It was one of my favorite parts of the entire show. And throughout this whole process, I was just really grateful that we seemed to be getting past this animosity that we once had. And so shortly before one of our performances, I went up to her and I said, like, hey, I've been having a really great time working with you on this show. And I really hope that after this, we can continue to be on good terms and maybe even be friends. And she basically said, I don't think that's a good idea. And I couldn't handle that. I broke down crying minutes before our show was scheduled to go up. And I just sort of hunkered down in a corner backstage. And my mom, who was still a director on the show at this time, sees me having a really rough time, and she comes over to me. And my mom has always been really kind and supporting of all of my performances. And she sees me crying, and she says, "You need to pull yourself together, okay? The show goes up in 5 minutes, and you cannot be crying when you are on that stage." And so I heed my mother's advice. I go up on stage, and the curtain is just about to go up, and one of my fellow castmates turns to me and is like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No." And the curtain goes up, and so begins one of the most surreal experiences I've had performing, because I am fuming and upset on the inside, but, you know, on the outside, I've got to, sell trombones to the people of River City, Iowa, and I've got to inspire a barbershop quartet, and I have to seduce the town librarian, who just so happens to be my ex-girlfriend. And I struggled through that production. I barely looked her in the eye. The irony of this situation isn't lost on me. My character, Harold Hill, was a con man who only survives by deceiving his audience into believing what he has to say. And in that performance, I tricked two groups of Midwesterners. The people of River City, Iowa, standing on stage with me, and the people of Colfax, Wisconsin, sitting in their seats, watching. The run of our shows ended, and she and I went back to not talking, not hanging out, not running lines, not rehearsing together. And I slowly realized that no matter how well we worked together in that show, we were really never going to be close again after that. We were better actors than we were friends. Thank you.
Another interesting, what you see is not what's there, or you don't know what you're looking at. And I thought that was a really excellent speech. Can you imagine all the theater that you may have participated in as an audience or whatever? You have no idea what's going on. They are excellent actors. So let's have some more comments while I look for the final one here.
Well, I kind of chuckle because when you think about it, that's what life's about.
Yes.
I mean, how many times have people gone into work and probably aren't okay, but they go and do their job and they do what they have to do, and they, or they go home from work and maybe just got fired or something went wrong, and they walk in the house and they look after the kids, they do what they've got to do, because that's what you do sometimes. So it's just, sometimes that's just what life's about. Good lesson.
Interesting. Anybody else have a comment?
I sort of agree. Okay, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, in a way, it is a bit of a reflection of life. Like you're saying, sometimes, even when you don't feel like it, you go through that acting. But sometimes if it goes to be a long-term thing, it's not always good either. Sue, I think you were going to speak.
Oh, I was just going to say that there's a Facebook meme, I think it is, to be kind to people because you don't know what they're going through.
Yeah.
And it's so many times you are dealing with strangers and you really don't know what their backstory is.
That's right. You
If
can't
if
assume
you're in a
anything.
store. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that his mother knew exactly how to speak to him so that so that he wasn't forever embarrassed
Mhm.
by crying on stage. So I thought that was interesting. It was funny the way he did his mother's voice, but it was also just what he needed to get through that performance.
Yeah. Well, and they had a run of it. It wouldn't have been just one show. It would have been a number of evenings, I suppose. So that's interesting too.
It makes me think of when I have to play nice with my ex-husband. And right, for the kids' sake, you have to play
But
nice.
yeah.
she's not the greatest actor on that part, though.
At the school, I'm good. If we're at the school, we both behave.
Yeah, but you could be a better actress.
At school, we are very good. We sit down, we do what we got to do. But if it's just him and I, then that's a whole other story.
Yeah. Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
All right, another moth story. All right.
3 of us went into the cave that day. Now, I get a little fuzzy on details, but I know Jamie was there because he's the one who threw the rock. And I know my friend Terry was there because he kept going on about his watch. My friend Terry was a techie before that was really a thing. And he had just gotten this new watch. Timex had come out with this Indiglo watch line. And this watch had this new cool feature. You hit a button and it lit up this fluorescent bluish green color. And a funny thing, I told some kids this story and they all wanted to know, did the watch have GPS or could you play games on the watch? I said, no, it was the 80s. The watch lit up. That's what it did. They weren't impressed, but we thought it was cool. And since I was the only one who had been into the cave before with the older kids, I had the flashlight and I led the way. Now, the entrance to the cave was a rite of passage all on its own. It was less than 30 inches in diameter. It was a 40-foot claustrophobic crawl that not everybody could make. But for those who did, it was worth it because it then opened up into this massive ballroom-sized cavern, and it had all these connecting tunnels that led to other caverns. There was a steep drop-off section with a shallow ledge that forced you to kind of hug the wall as you maneuvered across. There was even an underground river. And we had made it just about that far when we started to hear noises. We heard these squeaking, scratching, rustling noises. So I shined my light towards the sound in the ceiling, and there were bats. There were 50 bats, 100 bats. There could have been 1,000 bats hanging from the top of that cave. And that's when Jamie threw the rock. Now, I don't know if Jamie actually hit a bat, but he might as well have, because those bats got pissed. And those bats descended into that cavern like a big black bat tornado. And I don't know where I got the thought. I don't know if I read it in a book or if I heard it in a movie, but my only thought was that bats attack the hair of the head. And so I fell to the ground and I threw my hands up to protect my head. And somewhere in the midst of all of that bat frenzy attack, yelling, screaming, calamity, and commotion, I dropped the flashlight. It went out and it was dark. It was pitch black, jet black. It was deathly black. Now, apart from being home to some of the most magnificent cave systems in the world, a lesser known fact about South Central Kentucky is that it's also full of ghosts. No. The ghost of a well-to-do Southern debutante who, in her vanity and anger, cursed the sky and God above and was struck down by lightning. The ghost of a freed slave who was killed in a clearing at the end of a dirt road in the old county. On one of my earlier forays into the cave, the older kids had told me another ghost story. They told me a story about an awkward, shy boy named Lonnie who was lured into the cave by some of the older kids of his day. Kids who played a prank that went tragically wrong, and according to the legend, Lonnie never made it out of that cave. And it was right then, with my head full of ghost stories, that something appeared before me there in the darkness. I seen a face floating there in the darkness, and I was frozen stiff. And I reeled back in shock when the face spoke, and what the face said was, "You dropped the flashlight in a river." I had three reactions, the first of which was confusion, followed quickly by realization and relief. I was relieved when I realized that the face that I saw there floating in the darkness was not the ghostly face of a boy named Lonnie, but the face of my friend Terry, illuminated by the glow of the Indiglow watch. It would be 8 years before I would become a soldier in the United States Army and get the kind of night navigation training I could have used that day. But I'd get a crash course because the light of the watch only allowed us to see a few feet in front of us, so we were forced to crawl most of the way, clutching tightly to each other's belt loops, and we encountered several creepy crawlers, and it took us twice as long to get out as it did to get in. But we were able to find our way out of the darkness by the light of the Indiglow watch. And our adventures didn't end there at the cave. There would be many more close calls and narrow escapes, but somehow we managed to survive those restless and reckless Southern Kentucky summers. And I don't know if there ever really was a boy named Lonnie, but if there was, I hope he found his guiding light as well. Thank you.
And there you have it. Lonnie.
Oh, that was
okay.
funny.
That's me. That's me done. I hope you enjoyed those stories.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that last one was a doozy.
Well, and the stories I love it because they are real stories told beautifully. And I mean, you're right there with them. And these obviously mean something to the storyteller, and that translates to the people being told the story. I love it. It's and it gives you a real look inside people that you normally would not meet, and understanding people who are different from you. So it's valuable in that, as well as being entertaining.
Sue?
I would say too that the length of the stories makes them really appealing. I think the TED Talks are 20 minutes, something like that.
Not all. Some of them might be 12, 11, 12.
Yeah.
It depends, but they're not stories. They are lessons of.
Yeah. Whereas the Moth, I could certainly stand to hear more. I thought that was really fun. Enjoyed
Well,
that.
I've got zillions of them if you want to do it, and I mean, I use them all the time, and I find them, just to sit and listen to them, and some of them just hit you, like that first one. It's just, yeah. So
That was really great.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Kitty. That was really enjoyable. But I guess we better get moving because we got 15 minutes left. So we need to do the Did You Know? Sue.
Did you know? The one for April was, I once milked a bull, actually fed a pail of milk to a young bull. Who am I? And the answer is, put your hand up, Marion.
Oh, wow.
Oh my goodness.
And the one for May, okay, get ready. Did you know I was the runner-up in my elementary school's spelling bee? Who am I?
Oh,
Mm,
Back to
interesting.
you, Marion.
okay. Now I'm starting to think because, yeah, do they do spelling bees nowadays?
Oh, yes, they do. District 7020 has a huge, I think St. Martin, well, it's not just St. Martin, Anguilla, and one of the other islands right close, but it is a huge thing, a spelling bee. Yep. And of course there's the American spelling bee.
Oh, the Scripps one,
The
yeah.
Scripps one, yeah.
Seen that on TV.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now you all know what the question is. So remember to send Sue your guess. So next thing we have is happy notes and brags. And before I have Rick get after everybody for their happy notes and brags, I wanted to ask Sue to give the brag for our club.
Yes, the service committee and the board, which is pretty well the same thing in this place, it decided that we had an appeal from the district to say that they had some money left if anybody wanted to apply for a grant. So we quickly put together a plan to ask for money and use it for a donation to the food bank. And we thought if we did this every year, we could spread it out to different cities, but we would start with our first application. It will be for the London Food Bank. We have money in the budget that we need to spend from the East Coast Kitchen of a few years back. So when Bev and I put in the request for the grant, the total amount of the project we put in as $900 US, and that translates to in May Rotary Exchange 1.38. So that comes out to $1,242 will be the total cost of the project. And we've asked Canadian. Yeah. So 900 US. We will receive back $300 US. And that means the club expenditure will be $600 US. So some of us who were in the board meeting decided that we would send money to the club to supplement those funds. And it's something that we might consider doing in future years as well. So anyways, at this point, Lynn has a migraine. I haven't been feeling well either, but between us, we're going to get the check written and get it to the food bank. We thought if we delivered it in person and asked for a photo op, that would satisfy one of the requirements of the grant, which is to have a photo. And so hopefully within the next week, we can get someone at the food bank to accept the check and get a photo of it. And then we can get the final report in by the end of May, which is the requirement to get the money. So it's quick project, but Marion is absolutely delighted. Look at her smile. We would do anything to make Marion smile.
Oh, I'm so happy you were able to do that.
Yeah, that is such a big boost to be able to say that our club was able to take advantage of getting a district grant, because we donate to the foundation. We should be getting our chance to use it. And now we've had an opportunity to do so. So I am just thrilled. So yay. Okay, Rick, I'm going to let you go on with the rest of the happy notes and brags.
Very good. So who is really happy? I mean, like really going to be happy. Bursting happy. Why don't you tell us they're happy? Here, go ahead. Put your hand up. Anybody. Anyway, great. Okay, let's go down this. Oh, there you go, Sue.
Well, I was going to save this till everybody else had spoken, but let's get the brains working. I was absolutely delighted to discover that a bird has built a nest in my summer wreath. I have a wreath that normally would be on the front door, but we've got it to the side of the front door for reasons that you don't need to know. And one day I saw a nest in it. I thought, oh, I didn't realize that had a nest. Did it always have a nest? And Rick assured me today, no, it didn't used to have a nest, but it's a very well-built nest. And there's a little blue egg in it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so whenever we come out
Robin.
of the house, these birds are screaming at us from a front tree. They're watching us. And I have to watch the nest from my front living room window. I peek out to see if the bird's in the nest. It's so cool. Anyway, that's my nest.
It's truly weird. You really nest there and go to the tree to complain to the people who own the wreath. They have no idea. Why didn't you build the damn nest in the tree? Wouldn't that be just as easy? They like the wreath, I guess. So there you go.
So does that mean when we come to visit you, we have to go in through the garage because the nest is off limits?
No, it's not on the door. It's beside the door. So we're not actually disturbing the nest, but we're disturbing the birds. They keep having to fly out of it, but we're not shaking it around or anything. But I don't think that thing is ever coming back in the house because it's probably got bird poop in it now.
Yeah, that's why they have high pressure washers.
Rich is happy. Rich wants to say something.
Rich.
Well, I can continue with the bird stories. We had the same thing at our house. Every year, the birds will come back. We have a indoor fireplace, so it's like the part that's vented on the side of the house. And they've made a nest, and every year a new mama bird comes. But now they keep building nests on top of nests. I think there's like 3 of them that they've built all into each other. So it's like rock solid out there. So now you can't disturb it. You leave it every year. Now we park near the end of the driveway, or we walk, not by the house, around, so we don't scare mama bird to she'll fly out and sit on our neighbor's roof and look down at us, waiting for us to disperse. So she does not like, the kids and I playing hockey in the driveway, or our loud muffler that we're going to get fixed tomorrow, stuff like that. So you're probably not going to be able to move your wreath anymore. That's the continuation of Stu's story.
Yes. Kitty.
Well, I have 2 things. Back to the nest. A robin 2-3 weeks ago built a nest in a tree right outside our front door, or our front window. But we have to walk past that, and I have the feeling that the nest was built in about 1 day, but I haven't seen the next day. I saw the robin sort of in a tree over there at the side, but I haven't noticed any activity at the nest. It's like, we made the nest and then whatever happened. So I have to go and check that out. But why I'm happy is because I got to spend 3 days in Stratford with Nancy and George. So we were sitting at the same table for 3 days, and it was really lovely, and had a nice big hug with both of them before I came home, and it was really nice. Really nice.
Thank you.
Well, Nancy, were you happy about that?
I was going to be one of my happies too. It was a great weekend. And I know it sounds like we just sat at the same table, but we were just so happy to be in each other's company. Other people joined us.
Yeah.
But it was really a pleasure. And yes, it was a great conference, and very happy we went, because we were kind of on the fence if we could get away, and we were happy we got there. It was an excellent conference.
Really
had a few
excellent.
tears shed at that conference because it was pretty moving in some aspects. I think Kitty can agree. Yeah. And the peace poll, did I hear 250,000 of them that Saturday? It's incredible. Yeah, that was just a highlight. There's just so many other things. And the youth and.
Before we go on, George, were you happy with this whole thing, or was it just Nancy?
George was happy. I could tell he was happy.
Okay, George, you're off the hook. Consider everybody happy. Moving on, Heather, you got a big smile on your face. You must be happy.
Oh, always happy. Well, Ryla's this weekend, so that's exciting. I'll be happy when that's over. What else am I happy about? The weather. The weather has been lovely lately, so I'm really happy that we don't have any more snow.
There we go. I'd be happy about that too. Jessica, you sat down.
I have 4 rows of potatoes planted, 6 little rows of peas, 10 little rows of onions, and I'm hoping to get carrots in this weekend.
And a partridge in a pear tree. It's amazing how different lives, affect. This obviously affects her heavily, and I myself. What?
Also, my baby girl is turning 16 on May 17th.
Wow.
Maya is turning 16. I don't know if I'm happy about this because that means that she's going to have a driver's license. So, yeah.
Yeah, John, on the edge of that one. Maybe I can see where it could go either way. That's happy. Who else we got to be happy? Yeah. Your dog happy?
Yeah, I think my dog's happy. She's actually outside waiting to come in, so I'm leaving her out there so she's not whining. But yeah, no, I think we're okay.
Look at the cat, George. Can you see the cat?
I guess check it out. Dog, stinking dog. What's on it? Yeah, then. Marion, you're happy?
Yes, I had on Monday. I had a pair of rose-breasted grosbeaks show up for the first time this year, and yesterday I had my first Baltimore Orioles and a hummingbird. So finally, I saw them. They're a little late this year for the Orioles and hummingbird, but the grosbeaks were just on time. I always get a kick out of it because the female grosbeak will show up and I'll be looking at it going, what the heck is that? Oh, I'm not sure. And then all of a sudden the male will come in. Oh, right. Now I know what it is. They're so different, right? Like she looks like a double-sized sparrow with sort of lining on the head, and you don't really see the coloring underneath of her wings. So she's just what you call a brown thingamajiggy for the most part. And then the male shows up, and he's, of course, black back, white chest, and this lovely rose bib. And it's like, oh, well, now you know what you're looking at. So they're always pretty. And I've got the white-crowned sparrows here. The white-throated haven't shown up yet. The white-crowned usually show up by early April, and some years I'll get a flock of them, and this year I've just got like 3 or 4, but it came rather late this year, which is rather surprising. But I love watching the birds as they come around, and I still have the belligerent squirrel here, but yeah, you got to live with the rest of the wildlife too, right? Because they all have their place. But yeah, I'm enjoying looking out and seeing everybody show up at the feeders. That's my fun stuff.
Way to go. And I will speak now. The term happy wife, happy life applied to me today. Susan decided to go through my closet and figure out things. She had a stack of stuff and said, put these on right now. I said, no, I'm sure they fit. I'm sure they fit. Apparently I was wrong in many ways. So now my closet is half empty. And Susan had brought a smile, and she laughed her head off every time I tried to put a pair of pants on, wincing and pulling and wincing and pulling, and just couldn't get the two to meet if I tried. So as I said, happy wife, happy life. 3 bags gone. Yes, there you go. She got 3 bags rather there. And then she wants to take me shopping now, which is another thing I can't stand doing, but then again, has to be done. Death, Peony? What's that? Death. So I hand it back to you.
All right. So anybody have anything they want to brag about before, because it's 8 o'clock? So no? Okay. So Rick, do you want to lead us with the four-way test? And
Oh, certainly be a pleasure. It would be an absolute pleasure. The things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And Kitty.
The unwritten fifth rule, will it be fun?
We are completed.
So thank you all for coming. Have a great rest of the evening. Have a great rest of the week.
Good luck with Ryla.
Yes, and Ryla is all the excitement for this weekend. And happy Mother's Day for those of you who are mothers. And I think we are adjourned. So thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.